Oxford University Student Union is replacing clapping with jazz hands. Now, this is something I've actually seen a fair amount of in particularly progressive or leftist spaces where they're trying to eliminate things like clapping. They go to either snaps, which is what I used to do in college because a Zeeb can't hold a beer and clap at the same time, or what they suggest here, which is jazz hands, holding your hands up and shaking them to show approval. And I know there was a big stink kind of made about this a couple of years ago when a video of a DSA meeting leaked, and there was a bunch of people, it was spliced together a bunch of clips of people calling for people to not clap and not make noise like that because people could be sensitive to it. And my feelings on that is that if you are at a political rally and you are uncomfortable with the idea of people clapping and making noise, I'm sorry, you really don't have a place at a political rally. Political rallies are all about getting people fired up, charged up, and a lot of that is going to be making noise. I want to be sensitive to people's needs, but we also have to consider societal and political efficaciousness. So Oxford University, their student union, decided to replace clapping with jazz hands, which this is a situation where I can agree with this. Oxford University student union voted in favor of silent applause. Instead of clapping, yelling, or other noises, audiences will now show their support with jazz hands. In a college situation, I can 100% agree with this. And the reason why I can agree with this is because a college is a place where anyone should be able to go and learn. If you are sensitive to noises, as many returning veterans are, this is another important thing to consider, that many veterans return from the Middle East or other war zones with sensitivity to loud noises, sudden noises, and they deserve to get an education. So I agree with this and think it should be expanded out to other places. So this is an interesting article talking about it. It's pretty brief, just saying that some people might be triggered by loud noises. But I came across it because Optimus here has an issue with it. So I figured we'd go through and talk about what he has to say about it and probably why he's wrong.
And today we're going to be taking a look at something quite absurd. Now, of course, we live in modern era 2019 AD, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, and
Yeah, it's worth noting that this happened in October of last year, so this is not exactly new news, but I just came across it and thought I'd talk about it.
well, in this time frame here, people are offended by everything. There is a small subsection of society where
People are offended by everything. No, it's just that people who previously kept silent to avoid rocking the boat have realized that they can now speak up and their issues will be heard and perhaps something will be done about it. I've noticed that it's often white cis men who claim that everyone is always offended by everything. It's not the people who actually want to make changes. Because, again, this seems perfectly reasonable to me, but this person is just, oh, someone's offended by everything.
regardless of what you do, you're going to upset them. And of course, this video is yet another example of that. And it's unfortunate that we have people like this where you just can't do anything. Where you literally just can't do anything without them being upset by something. But today we're going to have a discussion about whether or not we should ban clapping. Because clapping is not only offensive, but it's also extremely dangerous. Now, I don't know if you guys knew this, but clapping...
It's not offensive. It's that some people experience discomfort loud, sudden noises. And those people have every right to be in public spaces like a student union. So making accommodations which hurt no one is perfectly reasonable.
Clapping has been, it's like a cultural staple. It's been done for, thousands of years. I shouldn't really have to explain to you what clapping is. You know what it is. You know what it signifies, what it's used for, especially in a public forum when there is a debate, a performance, something like that going on. Well, apparently clapping is being banned in certain places now because people don't think that it's right that people clap. They think that it triggers people with sensory issues. They think that it's also will create a more inclusive environment for students with anxiety or other disorders who might be triggered by loud noises. Now,
Yeah. It's always funny to me to see people like this who obviously have no real disorders to speak of. I mean, I don't know this person. Perhaps he does have issues, but his lack of empathy for other people tends to make me believe that he doesn't believe that these people should be accommodated. So they just shouldn't be allowed in places like the student union because they have a disorder they can't control.
Replacing this with something called jazz hands, which is a hand-waving motion popularized on stage and screen by choreographer Bob Fosse, I believe is how you pronounce that, which is the
Pretty sure it's Fosse, but whatever. It's not the only wrong thing you're going to say today.
British Sign Language expression for applause. Once again, this is taking place at the University of Oxford, and the clapping ban will be specific to student union events at first, but the officers of the student council hope to expand it to the other university events if it is successful. And we're going to be taking a look at a video from a morning show called Good Morning Britain, which there was a debate going on the show that I think is a great highlight of this whole thing. Because I think this video, though it's less than a minute long, really highlights the stupidity of...
So one thing they talked about, he mentioned there, was how they were looking to expand it to other things. And my immediate thought are the two major events that happen at college, which are plays and sporting events. Now, as someone who used to do theater, it sounds absolutely terrifying and awful to be in a theater, do your scene, and to have silence. But I am prepared to accept that there may be a situation where that in order to accommodate more people, to make it so that more people can enjoy it, that is something that could be acceptable, is to say, please hold no applause, please show appreciation through jazz hands, through silent applause. I would argue that perhaps a theater is probably not a place for someone with these kind of anxieties unless they're otherwise prepared to control them in the first place. But again, this is something that can be discovered, this can be explored. As far as sporting events, I'm sorry, you're never going to get sporting people to stop clapping, cheering, hooting, whistling, whatever. So, but fortunately, for both theater and sports, there are other ways people can get involved and enjoy those things even if they have these issues with loud noises. So again, I support it in the student union and in other student activities, but plays, maybe, again, because of just how disheartening it is to go out and nail a performance and then just hear silence from the audience. Especially since you can't always see the audience very well from the stage. The lights are deliberately set up so that they are in shadow and you can't see them very well. And at sporting events, it's just never going to happen. We will find a panacea for anxiety and loud noise disorders long before we convince sporting events to ban clapping and other loud, sudden noises of applause.
Of this whole thing, of this whole debate, really, because it's incredible that, up until now, I've never heard anyone with anxiety ever tell me, like, I wish they wouldn't clap at these events. It really gets my anxiety going. I've never.
So, either A, you've never known someone with anxiety, real anxiety. B, they have a mild form of anxiety that is not triggered by loud noises. Or C, you're just flat out lying. Because I do know people who are triggered by loud noises and they don't appreciate sudden applause and things like that. So, yeah. And again, just because you don't see the point of this doesn't mean there's not a point. It could just be that you need to check your privilege, mate.
Never heard like anyone with any other disorder just like freak out because of the clapping. And of course, I went to public school with a bunch of people who had all these different types of disabilities and stuff. It was never a problem. I'm assuming in your cases it also wasn't that much of a problem.
So again, there's a lot of people in college these days who are there because they did time in the military. And that's where a lot of these anxiety disorders are coming from. And that's ignoring the kind of anxiety that can come from growing up in poverty-ridden areas and places with a lot of crime, which can also lead to these sensitivity to loud noises. And again, anecdote is not the singular of data. Just because you've never encountered these people doesn't mean they don't exist. And I think it's good to expand public places to make them more acceptable for people with these disorders, more comfortable for people with these disorders.
Well, anyways, let's go ahead and take a look.
What is upsetting, genuinely, about clapping?
So it's actually not just for people with anxiety, it's also people who use hearing aids. Clapping can be disruptive to that. People who have sensory processing issues, it can be very distressing and overwhelming to have those loud, sudden noises.
Okay.
It's worth thinking about that as society has progressed and we've become more sensitive and egalitarian to issues like this, that people who previously would have just been shut up at home with their parents or caretakers are now being given greater opportunities to go out and do these things in the world. So we need to make accommodations to make sure that they can continue to do that. This is going to cause issues. This is going to cause both overreach from organizations, which this is not an example of, but also backlash, which this video is definitely an example of. So I think it's a good idea to expand these protections so that people have the opportunity to go out and live their best life regardless of what kind of disorders they may suffer from.
So here's the thing. Let's say you're going to a movie theater or literally anywhere where this is going to be the case, where there's going to be loud noise. Okay? You know this before you go to this place.
There's a difference between a movie theater and the student union and colleges and schools. A movie theater is a place you can go by choice, and if you never go to a movie theater, you're not missing anything. You're missing out on the latest blockbuster or whatever it is you want to watch, but you're not missing like the chance to better yourself and improve your position in life. Whereas by putting this ban in place in schools, we are creating spaces where people who previously didn't really have a way to improve their lives because their disorders were incompatible with regular everyday life. By making these changes, we'll make it so that these people can come into these spaces and improve their lives and not be discomforted by the way people respond to situations and celebrate and things like that. What if it is a cinema student? If it's a cinema student, then they probably don't have the issues with loud noises, But if they do, then it really is up to them to take those steps. And there are multiple people out there with these kind of anxiety disorders who love movies and would love to go to more theaters, but they can't handle it. This is part of what I'm talking about people need to understand their own limitations, but society can also do things to make it easier for them to help with their disorders. And also, film students are going to theaters to see blockbusters. Film students are watching old movies now on their computers and whatever streaming device, or they're watching old video VHS of classic movies. But if someone wants to be if someone with these anxiety disorders wants to be a cinema student, then they have to deal with it in those situations where it's unavoidable. But the student union, it's absolutely avoidable and should be mitigated.
If you go to a movie theater, even if nobody claps, there's gonna be loud noise because the speakers are always blasting noise from the movie, and the soundtrack, the sounds from the movie, they're always gonna be loud. It's not gonna be quiet. So even if nobody claps, they're still gonna hear extremely loud sound pretty much the entire.
There's also a difference between loud music, loud dialogue, things like that, and the sudden increase in noise and volume from everyone applauding. And especially, again, to go back to the situation where we were talking about veterans who are going to school and things like that, they're much more likely to be triggered by clapping, because that's going to sound like explosions or things like that, than for other situations, other problems. Who is this video game guy in the video? Does he normally go off on tangents about politics? I'm sure he's one of the... I know nothing about this person. They've got 500,000 subscribers. But this is something I see a lot, where people will just take recording of them playing video games and talk over them. It's the second laziest form of content production after streamers who just
What's
upload
going
their
on, guys?
streams.
Welcome back to another video, and today I find...
So, let's take a look at his videos. Although judging... Yeah. This is a political streamer who tries to mix in gameplay to try to catch the gamer crowd. Clowns use coronavirus chat. Yeah. Leafy, please do not. Yeah, so that's what kind of guy this guy is. He's a, I think the technical term is commentary video maker. He comments on things that happen in society and stuff like that. They often end up with a political bias, but it's pulling teeth to get them to admit it.
Time that they're in the movies, or if they're in the theater or watching a concert or something, I don't know, whatever they're doing, it's gonna be loud. That's what a public venue is. It's gonna be loud. When you pack hundreds if not thousands of people inside of one room, essentially, there is going to be a lot of noise. That's how it works. It doesn't matter if there's clapping or not. I hate to break it to you, but that's just how it works.
But it is part of our culture, isn't it, to clap? If you go to the theatre, or you go to a lecture, or you go to a performance, or you go to a gig, you would expect that people would clap.
Yeah, absolutely. And that could be preventing people from going to those events.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect people to clap. You would expect people to react that way. We've been doing it for thousands of years, but now...
That was weird. So yeah, once again, there's a difference between the loud noise from a movie and clapping. This is the whole point. honestly, I could totally see a cinema banning clapping because, unlike live theater, when you clap in a cinema, you're clapping for the people who. You're just clapping to show appreciation for the movie. I know some people claim they're clapping for the guy running the camera and, well, camera isn't the right word. The guy running the projector. Words are hard. But like every time I've been in a movie and there's been clapping at the end, in EU people don't clap in cinema theater. Yeah, it's not a common thing. But it does happen occasionally. So I could easily see a PSA campaign or something to discourage that, to make it more acceptable for people to go to the theater, to the cinema, who have issues with loud noises. Again, I don't think it's a great idea, and I think those people should probably still avoid them because of the nature of movies. But these are all things that can be done that aren't really inconveniencing anyone, that would make life better for people with these disorders.
Everyone should have to completely adhere what they're doing and our traditions to fit into what I think is correct. Because a very, very small percentage of people have a problem with it. And the thing,
a very, very small percentage of people have an issue with loud noises. But disenfranchising every single one of those people is wrong. And I know that there's a lot of people who think that any suggestion by any organization to change their behavior in order to accommodate someone is, oh my god, authoritarianism, the world is going to end. But we need to change society. Like, first and foremost, bottom of the line, society is broken and needs to be changed. Some small changes we can make to make things better include in spaces where people could be who might have issues with sound, making it so that they don't have to deal with these loud noises. I'm not saying we need to end clapping and applause across the board. But for spaces where the clapping and applause is not an expected source, an expected reaction, like in a student union, as the example in the article states, I think it's a good thing to limit this. Nearly every time I go to the theater, people clap at the end, but I only go see a movie like twice a year, so I'm not the expert. Yeah, and you probably go to big budget, very popular movies where people are likely to clap. But yeah, I think that is definitely an American thing, rather than a European thing, to have people clap at the cinema. I don't know why. Americans are weird.
thing is it's not even the people that she's like claiming could have like an issue with the whole thing. Like I said, I've never heard a person with anxiety or a sensory issue ever complain that this is a problem. The only person I've ever heard complain.
It's also worth noting that a lot of times these people won't complain, especially if you're a little chuddy like this guy is, that they won't complain because they don't want to deal with the backlash. This is also something I kind of talked about with the Me Too situation yesterday. People will go along with the situation even if they're uncomfortable because they don't want to deal with the fallout of calling it out. This is something that a lot of people have realized as people come forward with issues that, wait, you don't like that? Like, this is something I've had in my life where I tell someone, hey, I don't want you to, I don't like when you do that, when you say these things. You're like, really? I thought you liked it. You always laughed whenever I did it. And it's like, yeah, because I didn't want to make you uncomfortable, but now I don't give a shit. So, I mean, society would be a lot better if people stopped giving a shit about rocking the boat. Because a lot of these things perpetuate because people are unwilling to step forward.
Explain this as a problem is someone like this, who, from what it seems to me, doesn't seem to have, a hearing aid in her ear. And for someone who you would...
Progressivism, as meaningless a term as it's become, thanks in no small part to Elizabeth Warren, is all about empathy and fighting for someone who isn't you. So when I advocate for things, understand, I'm a white, cis het male. I am, with the exception of economically, I am at the top of the food chain. But I will advocate for trans people, gay people, minorities, all these people, because I know that not everyone enjoys the privilege I have. Not everyone enjoys the kind of life I have. And I want to make sure that life is better for everyone. Because when life is better for everyone, that includes us, white cishet males. So, the person he's referring to who doesn't appear to have a hearing aid and she may have an anxiety disorder, but that doesn't matter. There are people who have these issues, and we need to make society better for them. It's as simple as that.
I think if she does have anxiety, has no problem getting on a huge talk show in front of potentially millions of...
There's a difference between the anxiety experienced when there's loud clapping and potential anxiety from going on a talk show. Not all anxiety is the same. It's not one size fits all, dude.
People at home. That seems pretty weird, you know what I'm saying? So, what this seems like to me is we have somebody who is not affected by the issue speaking on behalf of everybody who would actually be affected by the issue if it was actually an issue. But
because she has a platform or some credentials. That's the word I was looking for. She has the credentials or a platform or something to allow her to have a voice and make these advocacies. This is what people are talking about when people talk about people with a platform having a responsibility to advocate for other people. Now, this does get used a lot to drive out minority voices, but it's important for people who benefit from privilege to use that privilege to help other people. If rap music gives me anxiety, does it mean that people can't play it in my distance? So again, we're talking about individual versus societal issues. If rap music gives you anxiety, just like I would say to anyone with loud noises, with sensitivity to loud noises, that it is primarily up to them to limit their exposure to those, either by wearing earplugs or, avoiding certain places, things like that. But there are certain places where we can change the rules so that they're more comfortable in general for these kind of people. But if rap music gives you anxiety, you can ask your friends not to play it around you, and that's reasonable. And yes, as Dave just said, if rap music gives you anxiety and you ask your professor to quit playing it in class, I feel they should respect your wishes. Yeah. Again, the issue is we're asking to change rules in certain areas where these changes don't really impact anyone, but can improve the quality of life for the people who are going to be, who have a right to be in those spaces. Now, if you drove through town and every time you heard rap music, you yelled at the person and told them to shut it off, that's being unreasonable. Or lobbying the government to ban rap music because it makes you uncomfortable, that's unreasonable. But individual organizations deciding through societal pressure to limit these sounds is perfectly reasonable. And again, especially, what's interesting is that this was just Oxford College decided to do this, Oxford University. But he has expanded it out to society as a whole when no one is really talking about doing that. It should be done. I guess I'm talking about doing that. But no one in this article or in the interview that I saw said that this is something that should be adopted everywhere. But there are definitely places it can be adopted that would be better.
It's not actually an issue, so, I mean, there we go.
which is a real shame. So if some feel
Just because you've never experienced it doesn't mean it's not a real issue. I've never experienced racism against me, but that doesn't mean it's not a real issue. I've never experienced cancer, but doesn't mean it's not a real issue. Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not a real issue.
theatres or some universities say, actually, we're going to be more inclusive and do jazz hands instead, that would be lovely.
No, actually, that would not be lovely. I don't think that would be lovely. I think that that would be really stupid, and it would look really dumb if you went into a theater or a performance and instead of after, let's say, your favorite musician finished up their set, everyone did not clap and, get excited. I think that would be really stupid because...
Yeah, I don't say stupid. I would say it could be very disheartening for the performer. Again, as someone who's performed on stage multiple times, the idea of walking off stage and just hearing dead silence is so... Like, I'm trying not to cry here thinking about it. And so I can understand that in performance spaces. But again, that's something that performers could adapt to easily. Dave, you just identified Chuddy commentary YouTube in a sentence. An 11-minute video of him taking something out of context and arguing with himself. Yeah. That's commentary YouTube. I could easily envision a world where applause is shown silently to accommodate people with these anxiety disorders, even in performance venues.
because the 17...
If commentary YouTube was a physical object, we would never need to harvest another hayfield again. We would have all the straw we will ever need for the rest of time, even if humanity manages to live another 1,000,000 years.
people in the crowd with a sensory deprivation issue would potentially have an issue with that. I think that wouldn't make much sense. I think instead, if those people have a problem and they know that they're going to a place where that problem could be intensified or aggravated, what they should do instead is potentially take precautions to avoid that.
So again, this is not an unreasonable statement, but he's saying that they should just do that instead of society making accommodations that harm no one. I mean, that's just reasonable. If it doesn't harm you and it makes life better for other people, why is it a bad thing?
That issue being inflamed. So if you have some sort of issue with extremely loud sound and you're going to a concert and you don't want to hear extremely loud sound for some reason, why don't you wear earbuds or earplugs, whatever you want to call them, to make sure that the sound doesn't completely blow your eardrums out? Because, that is a possibility. If you have anxiety, take some anxiety medication and do the same thing. Put in some earplugs and just go to the...
Again, my dude, this was a college made this decision. Nobody is asking the movie theaters and other performance venues like that to ban clapping. Because, you know what, you're right. It is a little bit unreasonable in those spaces to make things easier in that way for people who experience sound-based anxiety and other issues like that to change things so drastically. But it can be both. It can be both. People need to take responsibility for their own accommodations, but also there are accommodations we can make as a society to improve things for these people. It's like we can't focus on two things at the same time.
To the concert. Don't force everyone else around you to behave completely differently because you have a problem. That's when you become an asshole. But then again, these people, they don't actually care about everyone else. They pretend to care about everyone else in order to get what they want. That's
one of the funny things about people like me, leftists, progressives, whatever term you want to use, is how we always do things with other people in mind. Like, specifically other people in mind. But we get accused of disregarding what other people want because of anecdotal evidence. Because we're trying to argue for what we want. What we want is a better society for all.
That's how that actually works. It's almost like a facade with most of these situations. But anyway, let's continue.
More people could get involved.
And then what would be the penalty if you clapped?
I don't think there's going to be a penalty, frankly. I don't think anyone's going to say, like, you need to leave. But if you were persisting...
Societal pressure is a great deterrent. People don't smoke in certain places, not because it's illegal or banned, but because the people in that space don't want them smoking. I'm talking about, like, your friend's house. Like, I have friends who smoke cigarettes. They don't smoke in the house. So when I go over there, I don't smoke in the house either, because of societal pressure. Anarchism is cringe, bro. That is your opinion, and you're welcome to stick around while I discuss it later. So in these student unions where they want to ban clapping, what happens is if one person starts breaking out into a clap, then everything just stops dead and they get stared at. Now, some assholes will just continue to clap because they're assholes and they want to go against the grain. But even that one person clapping is much worse than... Or that one person clapping is much better than everyone clapping. And if they continue to do that, then they're only going to associate with other assholes. Be more like China, best system? Afraid I'm going to have to disagree there. China is a pretty shit system all around. Unless you're one of the handful of billionaire oligarchs at the top.
with clapping, even though you've been requested to do something that's not very polite, is it?
Okay, so there's no penalty for you acting against the quote-unquote...
There's no punishment officially, but that doesn't mean there's not a penalty. If you start clapping in the student union, it was like, hey, no, we don't do that here, and you keep on doing it, people are going to ostracize you. You're going to find yourself invited to fewer parties. People are going to work with you less on projects. This is what happens when you violate a social rule. I didn't think I'd have to explain that here, but hey, there we are.
Social norm that you're trying to set. What would be the point even trying to enforce this rule? I mean, if you act disorderly...
That is a far-right meme? It was, but it's been used enough by people across the political spectrum that I don't think it's a explicitly a far-right meme anymore. I know it was started by far-right people, but not anymore.
Orderly in public already. I mean, that already carries penalties, you know what I'm saying? You can be arrested for, disorderly conduct and all kinds of different things. If I went into a movie theater and I stood up in the middle of it and I started screaming and cussing at everybody and I whipped out my dick and my ass in the middle of the theater and just started acting ignorant, I would be arrested and I would probably face jail time. It's an extreme example compared to clapping, but of course, If you can't enforce that rule, why even try to set it? Because people are gonna do it. People are going to clap. So why even try to ban it if you're not gonna do anything about it? Because all you're doing is
Because societal pressure has to start somewhere.
setting yourself up not only to look stupid, but you're setting up your own rule to fail. Because people are just gonna come in, they're gonna do it, and your ban's gonna fail. And all these people that you're quote unquote trying to protect, who have never until this point even indicated that they need you to protect them, are just going to continue to be quote unquote hurt by everything.
Search up the yes meme on Google. Here, I can show it. It's these two here. I think I used this one in the Twitter he's talking about. I mean, I don't know that this person is especially muscular. He just has the chin and nose that incels associate with Chads.
Everything going on around them. So at the end of the day, you've just essentially admitted that all of this is going to be a big failure because, oh, well, we can't really do anything about it. We can't kick people out. You know, what is...
For the last time, no official systemic punishment does not mean there won't be repercussions, and that those repercussions won't change people's behaviors. This is the third time you've complained about this, so this is the last time I'm going to mention it. But no punishment does not mean no repercussions. Okay?
What is the point? At that point, you might as well just start clapping in the middle of the place to troll them. You know what I'm saying? So now I wanted to see if I was wrong about this, and I wanted to see if, I wanted to check the comments of this post and see if there were any people with these sensory deprivations and whatnot who were posting like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that this ban is in place. And, well, you can go ahead and see what some of these people with autism and all these other different problems actually had to say about the whole thing right here. This guy here says, I have autism. Bright lights, sudden sounds do startle me, and it is difficult, but I look at what I'm going to and take discreet ear protectors if needed. I don't see why the majority has to change. If we expect it, we're prepared. It would be better if they said there will be clapping, etc. That is what...
Okay, fair enough from that guy, but I'm sorry, I disagree. I think that if we can make this change, which, again, harms no one, and improves society for people like him, because what if he loses his earplugs, or forgot them, or, there's 1,000 different situations where changing these things can improve lives for people. It's good that he's taking responsibility for his own situation. And I think that we should encourage that. But I don't think that we should expect everyone to constantly be able to take that kind of control for their life, because shit happens. It's as simple as that. Shit happens.
what we called being a responsible adult. I don't see why everyone else has to change for me, so when I know that something is about to happen that I don't like, I take something for myself to make sure that...
I guarantee you're a white cishet male, so the entire world is built around you. The world is changing so that you're not the focal point of it, and that makes you uncomfortable.
that I am better prepared. This woman said, I have a son with autism who doesn't like sudden and loud noises, but going to a performance show, school assembly, things like that, he grew to understand that clapping does occur. He used ear defenders as a child and now carries discreet foam earplugs as a young adult. Reasonable adjustment both ways. This woman said, I have anxiety and am sensitive, so some loud noises, but if you're going to a theater, show, etc., you expect everybody to clap and for it to be loud. So no, I do not think it should be banned. Well, there you go. There's 3 pretty good examples in the comments alone.
Also, I tend to take Twitter testimonials with a grain of salt. Anyone can get on Twitter and say, I'm autistic and have issues with this, and I don't think it should be changed. So I will go with the data, which shows that making these kind of changes makes it easier for people to enter those spaces who couldn't before. And also there are people who can't mitigate their anxiety with just earplugs. And also it's worth noting how much issue can come from being the one guy with earplugs in a space like that. Like, that's going to get a lot of negative pushback.
With thousands of likes, letting you know their opinions on the whole thing. And these are people who say that they have these sensory issues that are being claimed in this video. The rest of the comments, of course, are pretty negative towards the video, but for this video, please guys, we're banning the emoji, the clapping emoji. None of those can be commented. None. That is going to be an issue with people with blind sensory deprivation issues, so blind people are not going to be
Ha 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 ha.
enjoying that one very much. So we are banning that one from the comments, but thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around our
Alright,
channel.
that's enough shilling. So yeah, I think that this is a good thing and that people should be willing to accommodate those with other issues. People should also take responsibility for themselves, of course. But we can do both and simultaneously build a better world. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.